Welcome to WO50, where women over 50 embody wisdom and wellness.
Yes, we do. My name is Corinne, and I'm here with my BFF, Eddi. And today our topic is sensing connection, mindfulness, and our senses. So, yeah, we don't have as much sensory experience in recent years with the digital age as we did in 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, even in the early 2000s. So we kind of delve into that and why it's different now and how that's affected our health.
Yeah, we talked about the fun things we did that really connected us, and from writing to painting to
writing
letters, and how important cursive was, and just and I even threw in a 5 senses grounding exercise.
Yes,
that is
towards the
fun.
end.
Yeah, so hope you enjoy.
Hello.
How's my BFF doing today?
Well, I'm good. We've only been talking for an hour already.
Yeah, honest to goodness, 40 years of talking, and do you think we'd run out of stuff? Like Strat says, what do you guys have to talk about? I'm like,
so much.
Everything.
Much. Like everything. Had to catch her up on my day, then on my week, and then on my next week, and then
same. We had to share stuff, and we'll never run out of stuff ever.
No.
Ever.
No. And I'm very grateful that we have Zoom since you live so far away. So I am grateful for technology and Zoom.
Yeah, me as well.
Yeah. Although today we are talking about how the topic is sensing connection, mindfulness, and our senses. And I was listening to the way we came up with this topic it's kind of something we touch on a lot just because we do talk about mindfulness in many episodes. It just kind of comes into the conversation. And I was listening to a podcast, I think it was Gwyneth Paltrow, and she said there was a book years ago about the connection between our sensory experience and our happiness. So the more sensory experience we are, say, like living in nature, connected to the earth, the happier we are. Yeah. And so to me, my brain was like, oh, well, that's mindfulness. So that's what I threw that out to Eddi, and she's like, yes. And then she came back with all the other good stuff to talk about.
And it's perfect because we're Zooming, but we still can't wait to see each other in person. Like there's a big difference when that connection, that touch, that we've lost it all. We haven't lost it all, but we've lost a lot of that connection with the technology advances, and we got digital everything these days, from cell phones to so many things, and we're going to talk about like our senses and how it's usually our senses that we know are real and true and that ground us, and they bring us into the moment, right? Into the like you can't taste an apple through Zoom.
Right, exactly. Exactly. I love that example because I think it's a little bit better. The example I usually give to people is like, okay, if you have a glass of water in front of you, no matter how much you think about that water and how much you've tasted that water in the past, it will not quench your thirst unless you actually drink it. Yeah. So it's the same thing as what you said about the apple. Perfect. Yeah. So I can't smell Eddi's perfume through Zoom.
I don't wear perfume. I wear essential oils. That's true.
Your essential oil. I can't smell your essential oil.
I'm very sensitive.
And so the thing is that has changed a lot in the past 50 years, especially. So we're going to talk about, so we do talk about mindfulness, and that is, it's really about being present in the moment. And what Eddi had said about that it's true. What that means is that we know for sure right now that we exist right now. As you're listening to us on this podcast, as Eddi and I are right here now talking to each other, we know that this moment, I'm here, you're there. And that's, but our mind has a lot of other stories about other things, about our week and that can be a wonderful thing. The mind is really cool for a lot of things, but it kind of gets overworked a lot. And so an anchor into the present moment is our body, our sensory experience, our sight, sound, touch, taste, and smell. And so we're going to talk today about that and then the ways in which that's changed over the past 50 years. So one of the first things that we were talking about was that the fact that we used to read newspapers and read actual books, right? So I know, Eddie,
Mhm.
you still prefer reading a book to Audible,
I
right?
do because I love to touch the pages. I love to turn the pages. I dog ear the pages. I like to see when I find an old book, like it's kind of yellowed with age, and I don't know. There's just something. I love just the tactile thing of books, and the same with writing. Like I still write stuff. I still write my to-do lists, and then I play around with my cursive, and as I watch my grandkids, they don't write. They're quick with computers and things. And I just read a scientific paper about why cursive was so important, and we never realized this, is that it actually, they didn't use these words, it brings you into present moment
Yeah.
mindfulness. No, you're concentrating on writing. You're concentrating on shaping that A or that L or that H.
Mm,
So your mind is going to what you're actually doing. Like you're shaping the H, or the H is going a different way. So you're anchored into what you're writing. So even stress and anxiety has gone down because you're not stressing out over how you're shaping your letter. Unless, of
right,
course, unless the nuns are coming around to crack you on the knuckles, because you,
right.
but, you know, that only happened once.
Stress and anxiety. Did that happen to you really?
Oh my gosh, yes, I got a crack on the knuckles. Yes. And everyone in Newfoundland in
How
my age group probably did too.
how long were
But
you in Catholic school?
well, I grew up in the whole Catholic teachings, right? So
Yeah, me
that
too,
was,
but I was
yeah.
only in Catholic school for only kindergarten was the only was it.
Oh no, my whole right up till I graduated. It was all,
Wow.
yeah, yeah. So there was a lot to move through with that, from
Yeah, it
from
is.
belief systems to conditioning to how you have to undo all this stuff, which is
Yeah.
a whole other podcast, right? Which you had
Yes.
years ago, you and Sean, Turning
Yeah.
Points, which was great.
Yeah.
But yeah, but that's the whole point about cursive. It was very calming, and um, just ease, and you got into it before you knew it. The same thing with writing a song or poetry. You talk to musicians; they're writing on napkins, right? Years
Yeah.
ago, they were. You don't auction off an iPad. You can, you've got beautiful signatures and writings and even painting, right? And
Yeah.
now we're doing digital painting where
Yeah.
like it's,
Which is beautiful. Like it's amazing
yep.
on one hand,
Hmm.
because I love being the kind of person, and I hope that this is always who I am. I don't know for sure, but that does embrace change and new things. Although our brain, it sometimes gets harder to do new things as we age, but it's important to do because to keep the brain malleable. But it's like just noticing the difference and why perhaps there is so much anxiety, depression, more trauma, like one of the ways in which we can heal from a past trauma is to ground in the present moment. Because
Hmm.
when we can relive a trauma in our head over and over again, and our chemicals in our body don't know the difference. So say if you were in a car accident and 10 years ago, and you still feel it in your elbow. So when you bang your elbow, you have the memory of that car accident. If you haven't sort of healed through that trauma, it can be in your
Hmm.
cells. And in cellular memory. And then every time you remember that, the same stress chemicals are released in your body, which can cause anxiety. And that's just one
Hmm.
of so many ways in which living in the past or thinking even in the past, or having anxiety about the future can cause stress in the present moment. And so when we're, painting, when we're actually with paintbrush, and when we're writing in our daytime, or when we're, what Eddie was saying, learning cursive as a child, that you're so focused, right? So
Hmm.
focused attention.
Yeah.
That's what meditation is. And although that's, I don't usually say meditation is focus, but it is about learning to be just okay with everything in the present moment, just as it is, right? That's really
Yeah.
what it is. And
Yeah.
so that we're going to talk about all these different things in which where we used to have much more tactile or other senses too, like even listening to a record player was another one that came up. So I remember my first record player that I had was a little box, not a boom box, but it was actually a record player box. And I remember the very first 45 that I bought with my own money. I think I was 11 or 12, and I bought Bay City Rollers, Saturday night. Oh,
Hmm.
Saturday night, Saturday night. And I played it over and over again. And you'd pick up the needle and put it on, and then you'd have to put it again. And so we know, because Eddi and I are both musicians, that the sound is different. The analog sound is different than the digital. But
Hmm.
also, too, that touch of touching, looking at the album cover, reading the liner notes. I don't know anybody that does not miss reading liner notes.
Oh yeah, I even miss like when you put the needle on, you really, really felt like you were awesome because you never scratched the record,
Yes.
or hear that
Yes.
while you're trying to move that little diamond tip exactly on where it
Yeah.
starts right at the beginning.
Yes.
It's almost like you won something,
Yeah.
You won the game, right? And it's same thing with games, playing games, and it's so much fun when people, break out the holiday games, right? The family's home, and you're getting ready to do that too, right? For
Yeah.
just cards, and how much there's laughter and there's connection and there's grounding. You're really anchoring into present moment. You're being more mindful, right? Just sitting there in the moment. There's
And
nothing
that's
else
And even
going
if there's,
on.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. And even if there's might be a little stress with the family, because that comes along
yeah,
with holidays too. It's all of it.
absolutely.
But that's why I love what she said, was that there is a connection between sensory experience and happiness. When we're present, pretty much everything's okay in the present moment most of the time, unless you're, at the grocery store and then you back into somebody's car and then there's a problem but there's maybe an
Hmm.
issue for 2 hours. And then
Yeah.
maybe there's an issue for another hour the next day when you have to deal with the insurance company. But
Hmm.
a lot of our issues, or perhaps you're dealing with somebody who's ill, you know,
Hmm.
but they're the ones dealing with the illness. You're dealing with how you feel about the illness and who you can support. And the
Hmm.
best way we can even support people going through challenges is to be sort of present. I mean, not sort of, to be present with them, to hear them when we're with them, and then to
Hmm.
be present at maybe the next day. And then an idea, when we're relaxed, an idea comes to bring them over a meal,
Hmm.
And so it's all these, you know, yeah, these tactile sensory experiences that we don't get as much of anymore. And that could be one of the reasons why there is so much angst in
Hmm.
society. It might look like political divide, but
Hmm.
it's sometimes people need a reason to, like, when they feel angst inside, the 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 finger will go to whatever's closest to them. That's why we treat the people we love sometimes not so great, because if
Hmm.
we've had a think about, if you've had a really bad day, you might snap at your loved one when you walk in the door and they have no idea what's happened. And so
Yeah.
that's how it is too, is there's stuff going on in the world, whether it's a war or political or whatever. And when there's angst from not being present, then we think, oh, it must be that.
Hmm.
And but most of the time, everything's okay right here, right now. Like, just think about, as you're listening to our podcast and our voices right now, are you present to whatever it is you're doing? Are you listening? Have you heard everything we've said, or is your mind wandered, a few times? And even when Eddi and I have talked about that before, about being
Hmm.
present with each other and really listening to what each other is saying, and not just waiting for our turn, kind of thing.
Yeah. Which is sometimes when I'm listening to you and I'm really listening, and then she hands it back over to me, and I'm just, oh, I haven't finished listening yet. Oh, it's me. I got to speak now. Oh, and
Which is
so,
different
yeah,
now,
it
right? Than it
is.
used to be. Yeah, yeah.
Yes, because we live so much in waiting to, or we speak over people, right?
Yeah.
We're waiting. We have the ideas are coming in. They're coming in. They're going to
Yeah.
come in. The
Yeah.
words are going to come in. We just have to be okay with just really sitting and engaging. And I've had to work on this one, quite a bit in my life, and listening to other people, and then always having, okay, they need to have information back, in what I do, even in my work, is I have to have a plan. I have
Mm-hmm.
to create something. These people are dependent on me right now in this
Mm-hmm.
moment. But when I started shifting gears and started just listening, the answer started to come into me in a different way.
Yes. I
So,
remember same thing with my coaching.
yeah, yeah.
Yes.
So I go, I never know what I'm going to recommend for somebody,
Mm-hmm.
but at the end of the visit, I got a plan ready. But there
Mm-hmm.
is no protocol, there is no set list. And if
Mm-hmm.
we kind of live our lives like that, it's beautiful. It's
Much
like
more
even
creative.
it really is, and you're just anchoring in to just grounding into like tapping into your senses.
Yeah.
So
And
yeah,
what's alive and true in this moment when you're
yeah,
anchored into your senses, when you're sitting in your chair, because you take notes when you're with your client. You're not sitting with the computer unless you've done an assessment or something. You're taking hand notes, and then you
mhm,
might type up their recommendations later, but you
I do,
first sit with them with a pen and paper.
I
Always. I
do.
always see you do that. And I see you too putting your hand on them sometimes, whether it's for a
Hmm.
pulse or just to kind of feel into their
Yeah,
energy.
yeah, I do. I look at the face, I look at the tongue, I check the pulse, I consider what they've written down to share with me, whether it's history or what's going on in their lives. And then it's listening and it is kind of just really being present because I have, I could have the grandkids to pick up in 2 hours. I could have supper that's got to be done, groceries to be picked up. Those thoughts might come in, but they go right out again when I, remove it, right? I just go back into this moment because
Yeah.
thoughts come in all the time with people,
Thoughts come in
all
all
the
the time
time,
with all of us, even with
all the
me
time.
and who I've been meditating for 40 years or 35, whatever it is, Eddie who meditates and is, it's like it's still we all everybody has like 85,000 thoughts in a day that come randomly. We don't have
Hmm.
any control over the thoughts, but we have 100% control of what we decide to focus on. So knowing
Yes.
this, using these tools and being mindful about being present and
Hmm.
so, I wanted to mention, well, my gardening and my cooking is something we talk about a lot, so we don't have to talk about it, a lot. But for me, being in the kitchen for 2 or 3 hours at night, like a lot of times I'll be with my headphones on because
Yeah.
I'll be have some music on a program or a cooking thing because I'm like
Hmm.
late night shift. Colleen will be in bed just down the hall, and so I'll have my headphones on so I don't bother her. And I'll be 4 hours sometimes in the kitchen till midnight, whether I'm fermenting something or chopping or cooking or prepping
Hmm.
something. And I'm so happy.
Yeah. You're immersed in it because it's that experience, right? And when we use our senses, even with cooking, even when I'm with patients, I'm using sight, smell,
Right.
touch
Right.
all the time, right? All the
Right.
time. And
Yeah.
same with cooking. You look at something, the color is off.
Yeah.
It doesn't smell right?
Yeah, because with the cooking too, it's like the touching the vegetables because there are people that not are not into cooking, but this
Hmm.
is again something that has changed and it's understandable. Busy people, working mothers, whatever, but it does affect you because handling your food yourself. I mean, there is something to be said about growing your own food, having your hands in the dirt, which is enzymes. It's really, and it's also grounding for your body with all the
Hmm.
EMFs. Colleen's been
Yeah.
doing a deep dive into that recently.
Plus your microbiome,
Yeah, with
hands
the,
in the
yeah,
soil, you're
hands in the
building your
soil.
microbiome, your
Yeah,
gut flora, like dog
yeah,
licks your face, you're eating fruits and vegetables, or yeah, there's a lot.
right. And so then and so even if you're not growing your food, if you're even taking it out of the package and washing it with your hands, you're touching your food and connecting with it instead
Hmm.
of just like opening a package out of the microwave and putting it in your mouth. And there's no
Yeah.
connection to the food whatsoever.
Yeah. It's come out of the earth. And just like ourselves, we go back into it,
Hmm.
right? So there's this beautiful exchange in how the matter that we put into our body, the just there's so much like there's lots of like techniques out there to ground ourselves, right?
Yeah.
And like that's one of them is putting your hands in the soil or when you're feeling anxious or you're having a panic attack, your nervous energy is just all over the place. And you just walk outside and you even just touch a tree or you put your bare feet in the grass, you can almost feel the heat go out of your body. Like just that energy, that softening happens and you didn't have to do anything.
Yeah.
You know, you don't even have to believe it if you don't want to,
Yeah.
but just try it and just see what happens,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
there's a beautiful technique. It's I don't know if you've ever done this with people, the five senses grounding exercise. Have you ever done that? The
Oh,
five fourth
yes.
yeah, I'm sure you have. And it's really fun because it's like five things you can see and you got to focus, right? You see them, you see the
Oh,
colors, the
no, I haven't
shape.
done that. I haven't done that. That's like a
Oh,
live, like mindfulness. Take us through it,
yeah.
Ed. Take us
Oh,
through it.
yeah. So the five things, right? So the first one you identify because it goes five, four, three, two, one.
Okay.
So you identify five things you can see, and you're, yeah, focus on the color, the shape.
Hmm.
It could be red apples in the tree, and
Hmm.
wow, some of them are small, some of them are really little, but you're on a walk and you got five things. So you identify five things that you can see, four things you can touch, three things you can hear, and it's the ambient, right? It's the
Hmm.
birds or the someone got their studs in their winter tires. Like I heard
Hmm.
that the other day and I'm going, "Oh, oh no, snow's coming." Back to the weather talk. Two things you could smell. So people smell ginger and onion in a pan or curry or you almost know what the spices are when you cook, but you're smelling two. And then one that you taste. And what's the first thing you taste, right? And you feel it and you linger and you savor it. This is, these are the things that we forget to do
Yeah.
because we're so quick. We see something, we're done. But
Yeah.
pick five things while you're there in a
Yeah.
visual mode.
Yeah.
But you do five, four, three, two, one.
Yeah, that's a nice system. I actually take people through that without being the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 in yoga. Almost every time I teach yoga is grounding in your senses, being aware of your hearing. One thing I like to add with the hearing too is even in your house, like you know how your house has house sounds, whether it's creaking or the wind or the
Yes.
fridge or like our
Yes.
our you know how much our kitchen talks. We've got like the water machine
Yeah.
that says alkaline water selected, and then the rice machine that beep 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 for the bread machine. Like, it's like people, I can't tell you how many people are like,
And
your
now we
house
have
talks to
fridges
you.
and houses and cars talk all the time, right? Like
Yes,
your door is open. I'm like,
yeah,
the fridge, same thing, ding ding. We know the sounds of our house.
yeah. So
And
we block
it's
it out after a while, or
we
we,
do, or we
yeah,
want white noise in the background, or
yeah,
I used to want a fan going when I slept. Like I come home
yeah,
to visit, my folks, and I could hear everything, everything. Someone on the third step, it's going to creak, the bathroom at 3 a.m., right? And I'm like, I need it blocked out. We're all so funny. And even my grandson, when he sleeps over, he's like, what is that sound? I said, oh, that's just the furnace. Because he's used to his house, right?
yeah.
Yeah. And
It's
as soon as he
beautiful.
knows what the sounds are, he's okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So tuning in, even crafting was another one. So Eddie's, a wonderful artist and has always been painting and, crafting of some kind. I remember candles you used to make me
Oh
for
my gosh.
Christmas. You
I
made,
still have them. Remember, I put the cinnamon sticks in them. I wrapped little like
yes,
fresh. I remember initially I put fresh greens around it, and I'm like, what if that goes down? That's going to catch fire.
fire.
Hmm. Maybe I'll just put the cinnamon sticks up top. And then I
Yeah,
decorated it with cinnamon sticks, which is
yeah,
kind of cool, all around
yeah,
the candle and tied it with a little bow.
yeah.
And I used to scrapbook, right? I used to make these scrapbooks. And then I thought my daughter would love them. Stories of, she's like, what am I going to do with all that?
She'll love them one day, Eddie.
One
She
day,
will
well, the
totally
grandkids
love
love
them.
them.
Yeah,
Because they get to look at their mom when she was little. So
yes.
I don't regret doing the scrapbooking. Plus,
No,
I
and
make
you have those.
cards.
Yeah,
I love making cards for
you
people,
make the best cards
birthdays,
on the
Christmas.
planet. Yes,
I love it.
I
You
love
did
my
too. I
cards.
love the ones you sent. And you were like, it's not perfect, but I loved it.
Well, I usually
Like,
make mine digitally. So you like do all kinds of stuff, stickers and printing things out. I tend to collect because I'm a big photo person. I have like 45,000 photos or maybe 55,000
yeah.
now in my iCloud. And so I'll collect photos of us over the years and put that on a card and or I'll have a card and I'll paste our pictures on. We have fun sending cards to each other.
When you just said that, it's interesting because it's the blend of both worlds that we embrace. Like, just think, you can store 55,000 photos, or I can, in iCloud, and if we want to find one tomorrow or right now, we can get in and
Take me
find
10
it
seconds.
and
Yep.
not go through boxes and boxes and
Yep.
boxes of stuff, right?
But that's
So
so fun though
it
too. Like
is.
that, I mean,
See,
it's both good. Like I'm thinking about when you
yeah,
just said the boxes, that's another thing we don't do a lot anymore because everything is digital. So yes,
yeah,
I appreciate the digital, love it. But
yeah,
your grandchildren will never
yeah,
know the
yeah,
beauty of going into a box and finding photos that they have to take a minute to remember. I don't have a
yeah.
lot anymore because I've moved so much, but I do have here a couple of boxes here of
Hmm.
that I look through. I did, and I yeah found some old photos of you and I, and some of my
Oh,
friends will have some from like the 80s that I've actually taken a picture of because they have the actual photo of it. So yeah, think
I
about
have some
that.
old I have some old photos of I have great great grandparent photos. Okay,
Wow.
it's old. The paper's old. The picture's old. Um, now it's an old picture. It's probably done on new paper from 60, 70 years ago.
Yeah.
But when you look at it and you see the visual, right? It's just like, wow, the changes that have taken place from
In
their
just 100
time.
years. Yes.
Yeah, because they got out and, you know, they tended to the horses. They had to, you know, they didn't just pop tarts in the toaster. They got
Yeah.
out and they were making the bread and they were
Making the butter, churning the butter.
churning the milking the cow and all that connection and talking to people, right?
Yeah.
Like there was I love this story of the guy that said his he was heading to the post office. And she said, you can just go on the computer and print a stamp off and just stick it on and drop it. And he goes, yeah, but then I miss talking to the neighbor and to the gal I meet along the way that's walking her dog and the other peeps at the post
So
office, and I catch up
true.
on their life. And yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of cool.
And that's
Cool
the thing
stories.
is that so mindfulness that we now call mindfulness and that we have to try to be present used to be a very natural part of our day-to-day life, right?
Hmm.
So we're not saying that we want to go back to milking the cows and churning the butter.
No, no,
No.
no,
But
no,
and because
talking to
I
the cow.
you
I'll
know,
talk to the cows.
but there's a reason why we feel more anxious. There's a
Hmm.
reason why we don't feel as connected. There's a
Hmm.
reason why we might be lonely. There's a
Hmm.
reason why there's so much ADHD out there,
Yeah.
and neurodiversity and all this stuff. And, we have to embrace where we're at. So now we have to
Hmm.
put a name to it, talk about, okay, this is where we were. This is how we used to be mindful naturally. We didn't have to talk about it, you
Yep.
know. Now, because everything's so digital, we need to talk about it. And there's so many people are on so many medications,
Yes. And
so many medications.
I had a patient that came in and her little one was 4.5, 5, and I we finished the visit, and this is a child of COVID. Nobody hugged. There wasn't lots of visitors. This baby was born during COVID, right? And now she's almost 5. And I was like, can I give you a handshake or a fist pump or a hug? And she's like, well, I like you. I'll give you a hug. And I'm going, we never used to ask, but this is good that we do because we have boundaries and all the language is in place, right?
Mhm.
But her mom said, this has been really different for her to be, connecting with people. And, we were housebound and she was a baby, and this touch and everyone coming over. And, it's, man, I can't
Wow.
imagine what they had to deal with, right?
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
we have then there so comes some anxiety in
Hmm.
kids, the fear and the things that that social connection. Same thing with having dialogue with a teenager. They get a text. They don't know the emotion behind the text.
Yeah.
They're receiving the text in the mood they're in
Yeah.
sometimes. I mean, I've done it myself and went, oh
Yeah.
God, I never put an emoji on it. Oh
Yeah.
shit, Corinne's going to take this the wrong way, And then I go back and I send an emoji after it. And sometimes you might go, oh, good. I thought, oh, no, no. But if you're upset at me, that's your problem.
I've just been thinking recently because I'm really into the emojis, how much energy they take. And
I
I'm kind of
know.
cutting back on the emojis recently myself.
Yeah, I have a select few. It's usually a heart or a hug, right?
Yeah.
Or a
I like
flower.
the
Like,
flipping one, the one the girl flipping up, because that's to me like woohoo, you know.
yeah, yeah. And there's lots of them. I'm like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
You
And it
know?
means different people, like it means
Yes,
different things like to different people. I think we talked about one time before I listened to something where it's the different hearts mean different things, you
yes.
know.
I didn't
Well,
know that.
yeah. And I
Yeah,
mean the eggplant is supposed to be a penis. I didn't know that,
I had no idea.
Yeah.
I was like, what are you having for supper, honey? Let's have eggplant. I'm like, oh, what? What? Or the hand one. Like,
Yeah.
I was like, why are you telling me to stop? She's like,
Yeah.
that's not a stop. That's a
That's a
high
high five.
five. I'm like, oh, see? I'm like,
Yeah.
stop.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we
So,
have to keep communicating and just go, whoa, because we
yeah.
don't, we can't be people pleasing all the time. We can't read people's minds.
Yeah.
We can't do all the connection, but we can do our part in just grounding ourselves and, you know,
And sharing the old ways with the young when they want to.
yes,
Like Eddi, I know you're great with, you go with your grandkids and go, doing skating with Rowie, and you do crafts with them and baking with
hmm,
them and different things, and just so sharing that, because it's a we're used to it because we used to do it, and that
hmm,
it's going to be new to them, so they're going to see if we've said some of these things that you used to love or still love, and share it with the people in your life that are younger.
yeah, yeah. And if there's some things we haven't mentioned, send us a little message and tell us because I love looking back at those things, right? And going,
Yeah.
remember when? And every generation does it.
Yes. Yes, that's very true.
But
Every
our
generation thinks,
sense, yep.
go ahead,
But
our
the
sense
power
what?
of touch and our senses, we will always have those. Sight, well, hopefully
Yes, those
that's,
of us who are blessed enough to have all our five
yes,
senses,
yes.
and our sixth, our intuition.
Our intuition, my goodness,
Yeah.
that's a whole other
That's a
podcast.
whole other, maybe that's another one. What's the antidote for stress in holiday season?
And
Present moment.
presence,
Oh, I
presence.
think that was our podcast last year, wasn't it? Presence, presence instead
It's,
of presence minded or something
yeah,
like that.
presence
Yeah.
instead of presence.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
So being present.
presence,
Yes.
anchoring in, right? Or the snow or the green or the ocean, wherever you are in the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, enjoy
Connect.
life now.
Enjoy the connection now. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Enjoy the kinetic connection, right?
Like that. My God, there's another one. We'll never stop. Love ya.
Love ya.
Thanks for listening. Welcome to WO50 podcast. Plastibaldo Parskiti Choshomangahanya.